So welcome back to this channel. It is a young channel that is growing really fast and I'm really appreciative for that. So far we have 220 subscribers, and this is not something that I take lightly. It shows that probably what I'm putting up in this channel is either educative for you and maybe to some extent entertaining. So I'd suggest that you keep sharing this channel and the links to your friends and anybody else whom you think may be interested in such kind of content, and then let us grow together. I'm not a master of all the things that I talk about here. It is just out of a little bit of experience and a bit of research here and there. So I'll appreciate if you give me feedback in the comment section below so that we interact and get to know what happens in the where you are. Yeah, so welcome to this edition. This is a follow-up edition to a video I did earlier. I think I did it about 3 months ago, and it has received a lot of viewership. It is actually one of the most popular videos amongst everything else that I've ever made, and that is why I have the motivation to do this second edition, so that I cover up on some of the gray areas, and I specifically want to answer questions that have been raised under the first video that I did about how to start a gas retail business. So stick to the end so that we get to actually answer some of these questions right at this point. So I'll get on to the first question, which someone asked. So there is a follower of mine who is a friend and is a fellow YouTuber who is called Lona the Seawist. She asked this question: how do you decide which gas brand to stock? So as you'll realize, if at all you've been motivated enough by that previous video and you've started such a business already, you'll realize that in the market there are so many gas brands. I've tried to put a few behind me so that you can have a glimpse of some of the gas brands that we have in the market. There are very many, and I can tell you that these brands vary from location to location, because there are some gas brands that I've never even laid my eyes on, yet I see them all the time in the internet. I see them sometimes in social media being advertised, and being that I'm in the western circuit of Kenya, I have seen more brands that are never in other towns. For example, some of what we have here are not in Nairobi, and I can also say that maybe what you have in Mombasa is not the same brands that we have here. But on a general note, we have some brands that have been in the market for, I think, a very long time. Something like these brands are affiliated with petrol stations and these oil companies. So if you know petrol stations like Total, if you know petrol stations like Shell, Kenol Kobil, that was a previous name. Currently they are going by the name Ruby. I think there was a change of ownership or something. So these are brands that have been in the market from time immemorial. I can remember Afrigas has been something that I saw even while I was a child, because it is affiliated with the oil company called Shell. Then Total, of course, their brand is Total, and the other one is K-Gas, which was previously being done by Kenol Kobil, but currently it is being supplied by the company called Ruby. As for now, those are the main companies that I can mention, and I'm sure you know that these being very major companies in our country and even globally, you'll know that these brands are things that I'm obliged to say that these are brands that can be trusted, and based on that, they are brands that have established their footing in the market over these years. So that means that their prices are not low. If you're someone who uses even Total in your house, you know that even as much as the price fluctuations are there, most of the time it is selling higher. Something like Afrigas, which is from Shell, also sells higher. And then we have others like Oil Libya, which rebranded recently and they now go by the name Ola. Yeah, those are some of the brands we've seen in the market for quite some time. So the question, how do you decide which gas brand to stock, will depend on what is common in your locality. For example, There are some newer gas brands that have come in the market recently, and these ones are, most of the time you find them in some towns, and based on their marketing strategies you may not find them in other towns. So it becomes difficult to stock such brands because you'll have problems with suppliers. You may not find suppliers very easily. So to decide on which brands to stock, I'd say you first go with the main brands that you know supply will not be an issue. And then number two, you also need to carry out a small research. When I wanted to start this thing, I felt like I could go around in the homes and supply a small questionnaire, so that I ask women or homeowners which gas brands they use. So if you want to put it up in an estate, for example, you may start by going around and ask these people which gas brands they use. You can supply questionnaires even in churches after people leave the service. If they are kind enough to pick them, then you'll be able to know which is the commonest brand in your area, and then now you can stock that one. So that is one way you can use. But the main way you can decide on which gas brand to stock is you go by the companies, then now you zero into what is being used mostly in your locality. Yeah, hope I've answered your question, Lorna the Seawist. And on that note, Lorna is also a YouTuber, so if you find time and you are someone who is into design and design in terms of clothing, then you can check out her channel so that you show her some love, yeah, by subscribing. And if you like her content, you can also watch the videos that she has up on her channel. So do the gas brands have different margins for sellers? Yes, they do. They do, based on those reasons that I've given you. Some are brands that have been there for long and they're trusted brands, so you can imagine their prices are higher. And I can say that the profit margins in these ones also is quite fair in comparison to the others. Yeah, in my own experience, I think that is how it is, because they are brands that the consumers do not compromise this for anything else. They want their brand or nothing else. So if you stock on these ones, you can be sure to sell if your customer service and relationship with these types of clients is good. So the different profit margins are there based on the brands, but on a general note, the profit that you get from a 6 kg cylinder, like these ones here are 6 kg cylinders, and the larger ones you see here are 13 kg cylinders. So the profit margins of course differ with the kind of the size of the cylinder that you're supplying. So if, for example, I'll just tackle this once and for all, because I saw there's a question asking about the same. I think from John Juguna, he was asking about profit margins for each of the brands. So for the brands, the difference will be about 50 shillings for the 6 kg ones, and up to maybe 100 to 150 shillings for the 13 kg ones, from one brand to the other. But within the same category in terms of kgs, for the 6 kg one, you'd expect about 100 shillings on the lower side per cylinder to 150 shillings on the higher side per cylinder. Some people, I see them are fetching even a profit of 200 shillings. But if you've watched some of my videos about how to start businesses, I'm not someone who's keen on fetching very high profits from a commodity. I'd rather maintain a very friendly price so that I have the customers coming back. Instead of putting the price very high, you want to fetch maybe 200 shillings for this one, then the client comes once and disappears. That is not something you want to do for your business. You want someone who keeps coming, because your prices are friendly and at the same time you are also fetching a reasonable profit. Yeah. So another question from a subscriber of mine called Brenda Jagger. She asks, do you order directly for delivery at your shop from the companies? So she asks, if you've started such a business, will you be ordering your stock directly from the companies? So just like any other type of business, gas business, not to mention, operates under the same dynamics. This is to mean that The main company supplies people we call distributors. Then now these distributors may decide to bring the gas themselves to the retailers like myself, or they may take some middlemen who do the deliveries and sales on their behalf. So when you start this kind of business, you do not expect to have, for example, Shell delivering the gas to your premise. It is not possible. They deliver to the distributors. Then now the distributors sell the gas to you. So what you need to do when you start is to find out these suppliers, who are they, because you also want to have legit suppliers. You know the kind of world we live in. So I hope I've answered your question, Brenda. You do not get supplies directly from the companies. We have people you call distributors, and these are the people that if you link up with, they'll be able to supply gas to your premise. Yes. And these distributors, you'll know them by the kind of premise they have, because they have restrictions. There are certain parameters that someone must meet for them to be a distributor. And you know, if you dream big, you can also become a distributor. It is not for the chosen few. You must have a particular number of cylinders. Your premise has to be of a particular size and other specifications that I may not dwell into, because my area of expertise is in retail gas business. So that is what I'll talk about. And here there are no restrictions in terms of the number of cylinders that you need. So you need at least 3 on the minimum of each brand, and you are not obliged to have every brand, because each company does its own supply. So you can have maybe 3 of 2 brands to start off with, and then now you allow yourself to grow from there. Another segment of her question is that, and if so, which companies are easy to work with? So from my experience, I feel like it is a competitive world, and so far I feel like it is a fair environment for all the brands, because each of the brands wants to sell. It doesn't matter if it is a brand that has been in the market for longer than the other one. As long as they have the product and they want to push it into the community, then you'll always get the supplies. But for some companies that are a bit dwindling, you'll realize as soon as you start, because you'll realize that supplies, maybe you place an order to them and they're not able to commit in terms of delivery. Then at that point you'll be able to know. But as I said before, there are some brands that have been in the market for a long time, and you know them, so you can consider starting working with these ones. Then you grow pole pole as you study the other brands. Yes. Then there is this subscriber called 111 Earth Angel, who asked how much did you start off your business with? No, the question is, how did you fund your startup? So personally, I used a little savings that I had, and it was not much. I've said this over and over again. I started with just 3 cylinders of the same brand, and I'll be frank enough to say that it was K-Gas. I've told you K-Gas is a brand that is pushed by the company called Ruby right now. It used to be Kenol Kobil, and this is a company that I believe has been in the market for very long. Since childhood, I remember seeing Kenol petrol stations and Kobil petrol stations. This is not a promotion, it is just a factual statement, and that is what I started with. I started with 3 of that. Then pole pole, I realized, so people can buy gas. Someone bought the first one, then the second one, and then I started panicking. What if the third and the fourth client comes and I don't have anything? Then now it got me encouraged, and I got more cylinders. No, as the business grew. Then of course initially you have to dig into your pocket so much. So most of the cylinders that I had at first, I'll not lie to you that it was the business that gave birth to them. No, I had to go back to my savings. I had to do other types of side hustles so that I could raise some amount to buy a cylinder. And you know, the cylinders also are quite pricey, so you have to work extra hard. Even savings may not be logical. You just have to find other smaller side hustles that you can do so that you fund this other one that you want to get up and running. I hope that answers your question, 111 Earth Angel. John Juguna says, I'm eagerly waiting for a video on the best brands to stock and profit margins of each. John Juguna, if you've listened to my explanation before, I'm sure you have your answer by now. Profit margins, as I mentioned, for the 6 kg cylinders, you expect between 100 to 200 Kenyan shillings. Personally, I work with an average of 150. And then for the 13 kg cylinders, you expect between 300 to 500 Kenyan shillings. So 450 for me is okay. And then the best brands to start with, of course, I've mentioned. The longer you've seen a company in the market, the better. The more reasonable for you to have their their brand also in your shop. But business being business, you can see maybe a brand that you feel is very great in the market one day, and then things happen in business. So you always have to remain open-minded, even as you choose the brands that you feel very comfortable with. And that does not mean that you cannot work with the other brands. You need a little bit of everything, because every client has their specifications and preferences. So if you stock only a particular brand, then you'll be missing out on the other brands that you feel are sort of small in the market, yet probably they have customers within your locality. So that is something that you need to check into very strategically before you start. What is the range of net profit per month? What is the range of net profit per month when you are doing this gas retail business? So you can do your calculations. Like I told you, let me get very practical. When I started, I had 3 cylinders and I sold them in a month. Then I refilled them. So I sold each of these 3 twice in a month. What I know about startups is that people still shy away from you because they know, of course, you are new in the business. They don't feel very confident with you, but that should not discourage you. So you just keep opening shop. You just keep displaying the few cylinders that you have, so that you win their confidence over time. So profit will be worked on depending on the number of cylinders that you've refilled for clients in a month. So let's say you've refilled 5 of the 6 kg cylinders in a month, and you are targeting a profit margin of 150. So I'll get my calculator and say 150 by 6. So that is 900 shillings. And that is on the minimum, especially for startups if you are starting very small. Then let's say you sold even 5 of the 13 kg ones. And this one we are talking about 300 to 500 Kenyan shillings. So that is 5 by, let's say, an average of 450. So that is 2250 plus 900, that is 3150. Yes. So of course profit is not a static thing. Depends on a number of factors that, if you are interested, you can also dig up for such videos that I've made. There are things you need to do so that you make sure that clients keep coming to your shop. You don't just put cylinders there and you sit back waiting for profit at the end of the month. That does not happen. You have to be very consistent. You have, a lot of things that, if you're interested, you can check one of my videos that I've talked very deeply about such things that will make your product move, that will make people want to come to your shop, that will make people want to call you so that you deliver gas to them. And then those ones now will ensure that you get a good profit at the end of the month. So I hope that answers you, darling. But check that video that I've done on the same. And then Imelda Odero asks, how much can I start with? And this one again depends on how heavy or how light your pocket is. Yes. If you have a lot of savings, you can just risk and put them in the business. So I think I've answered all the questions that I had on the threads after I did that video. And if you've not checked out that video, I suggest that you find it in my content list and then you watch it. You'll learn a lot. Then if you're someone who is in this business already, you can share what you think so that we have an interactive session, so that I also learn what you do that I probably do differently. And then I also like to encourage you that for every business, however ready you feel, however ready or prepared you feel before you start, It will not work if you don't put in persistence, if you don't put in hard work, you know, and if you're not committed to it. Even if you don't make sales in a day, commitment demands that you open your shop at respective times of the day and you be consistent. You don't open one day and then when you don't make any sales, you are closing for the next 2 weeks and you are on the way starting to think about what other business you can start. Every business needs patience, especially when you are starting up. And then gas delivery is also not an easy job, because you know it is something that you have to be on standby. You need a phone for, you need a line for the business, because right now very few people walk into shops buying cylinders, I mean refilling gas for themselves. Most of the time what I see is that they call, so you have to be ready, because gas on its own is weighty. The 6 kg one is not just 6 kgs, it is 6 kg gas plus probably 7 to 8 kgs cylinder. So that is a 15 kg weight that you're carrying to someone's home. And on top of that, if you're delivering gas in a flat, maybe you have to do 6 stairs, you know. It is hard work. And I believe there is no easy hustle. So if you want to start this one, don't be discouraged, but be ready to work very hard. Actually, if you are the one doing it, you will grow muscles. Look at me. Sometimes you'll become very muscular. People will wonder if you're going to the gym. It is just a gym on its own anyway, but don't be discouraged. And if you feel like these are challenges that you cannot, you know, you cannot meet or you cannot rise up to, then probably just look for a different hustle. Because sometimes even like nowadays the weather is very terrible. It is rainy and someone's gas has just run out. You don't tell someone that please wait until it stops raining. You will not sell. You have to invest in gumboots and raincoats and probably an umbrella for your motorbike. So be ready to hustle. That is just what it is. And with those few remarks, I come to the end of this edition. Thank you for sticking to the end. I hope it has been educative. I hope it is informative. Keep looking out for more similar videos, and keep sharing the link so that we get more people subscribing to this channel. I thank you. Until the next edition, see you for now.